my name is Mike. Um, I've been studying like several different martial arts, from the time I was probably about 5 years old. I'm in my 40s now, 40 something. When you, most people, when they start thinking of in terms like martial arts or any kind of fighting or anything, they look at technique. They're like technique, 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 technique. They don't break everything down to principles. The problem is, if you don't understand the principles behind the movement that you're actually utilizing, it does you absolutely no good. It's not a technique for if someone does this particular movement or they try to strike at you this way. That doesn't really matter. What really matters is that you actually understand the principles behind what you're doing. Principles are things in nature. Principles do not change. Principles be something like, for example, seating. Someone cannot hold your weight up, so you can, if you drop, they're going to have to drop too. You're basically dropping yourself, you're centering your weight. From there, if you take these principles into your in your train of thought as you're thinking about the movements that you're actually utilizing. I personally will use like 5 principles. I'll use seating, I'll use guillotine, which is basically a scissoring motion, or shearing. Also whiplash, adhesion, and gyroscopic rotation. With those things, if you can apply those principles, then your techniques are it's not going to matter so much what type of technique you're using, as long as you're utilizing those principles with them. The thing is, let's say like if you're differentiating like different styles or different systems, certain systems are going to take some of those principles. That's like one will actually utilize all 5, or one may utilize 3 of them, and they think that that's the most important part of what they do. And in that will apply to the fundamentals of that system. And from those fundamentals, they create training methods. And every training method, every school, every system. If you go to a boxing gym in Chicago, it's going to be different from a boxing gym in Atlanta, just because of the simple fact that they'll utilize different training methods. Those training methods have to reinforce the fundamentals of what they believe to be some of the most effective means to get the job done. And the fundamentals will apply to principles. When you do start to break down technique, and you start to break down what someone's actually doing, number one, it has to be doable. Not only does it have to be doable, it has to be repeatable. And in order for it to be repeatable, well, it's going to have to be trainable. So those 3 things are going to have to come into effect in developing your training methods to actually reinforce the fundamentals, which in turn reinforce the principles. Me personally, I train with, or I teach out of what I call the 4 C's. The first C is conditioning. And conditioning, what I'm talking about, is not necessarily conditioning as far as being able to run 10 miles or being able to do 30 pull-ups or anything like that. Although it's very good and it's a wonderful thing, but what I'm referring to as conditioning is, say, from a boxing standpoint, if you end a combination off this hand, you're automatically pivoting off to this side. If you end a combination off this hand, you're stepping off this side. That way you get your body off the line, and you're actually at a better angle to hit them without them being able to strike you. Now, of course, this is just from a boxing standpoint, but it will carry over to anything. It doesn't matter if it's knife fighting, it doesn't matter if it's stick fighting, anything like that. You look at any of the Filipino martial arts, they'll utilize a lot of triangular footwork, like from the female triangle to the male triangle. Some people call it the attacking triangle or defensive triangle. But you'll have like certain angles that you have to move in order to get yourself offline and actually be able to strike them. So that in itself is conditioning your body to do it. So there's a lot of repetitiveness in this training. From repetitiveness or from the conditioning will actually come composure, and that composure is actually only built by, number one, actually putting it into play. Because one thing that I discovered as far as like the time when I was actually training with boxers and kickboxers is that guys would actually go in and they would start looking really good on the bag. Their footwork would start looking really good. They would look good on the mitts. They were working. They were doing really well. And as soon as they got hit, everything went out the window. They either did this or they did this or whatever. Went back to look like they came straight out of a trailer park. The thing is, once you start to build that conditioning in so that you're really doing well and you can actually maintain that composure, then you actually start to build something called competence. And that competence, there's actually, I guess, 4 consciousness of competence. And that's actually not my quote, that was from someone greater than me. And that is, the first one is unconscious incompetent. It means you don't know what you're doing, but you don't know what you're doing. You probably think you do. The next one would actually be conscious incompetent. It means you don't know what you're doing. Then there is conscious competent. And conscious competent means you know what you're doing. You're there, but you got to think about it. You got to really think about what you're doing. You got, okay, I got to throw my jab, I got to throw my hook, I got to step off line, and things like that. But then after that, you'll reach a level of unconscious competent. And unconscious competence is simply put, you automatically do it. You don't have to think about it. It's something you just automatically do. So from there, that would actually be the third C, is that level of competence. And then that actually turns into confidence. And when I'm talking about confidence, I'm not talking about a false sense of confidence. False sense of confidence, you're basically, that would almost kind of go back to being unconsciously competent when you have a false sense of confidence. Okay, but you know where you're short. You know your strong points. You know your weak points. You're still working on your strong points to make them stronger, and you're working on your weak points to make them also stronger. So from there, it basically just turns back into a big circle, and then it starts all over again with the 4 C's. So that's just some of the philosophy that I use as far as like when I'm training with guys and when I'm working with them, and I try to build them up slowly. But anyway, as far as breaking the systems down, that's just the way that I do it. And it doesn't really matter a lot of what system you're training. You can still use this philosophy. So anyway, that's all I've got for now. So thank you very much.